Guys, Season 3 may really be the last season of the Frog Show, and I've been wondering, where will the girls go at the end? I've been thinking it through, and I've managed to come to solid conclusions for each girl, so let's hop right to it. Oh, and please subscribe for weekly Amphibia content. It ensures you don't miss out on anything, and prevents the algorithm from stabbing my channel in the chest with a flaming sword, and not many people do it. If you want even more, check out my social links in the description.
Well, sign me up!
As Anne is the easiest to figure out of the three, let's start with her. Anne has kind of already answered this question herself. When Marcy asked if Anne wished her adventure could last forever, Anne said that while it's been cool, she wouldn't go that far. As well as that, unlike Sasha and Marcy, Anne has openly expressed missing her life back home. She loves her life on Earth, and the only thing really keeping her in Amphibia would be the Plantars. As for the question of whether or not the Plantars alone are enough to get her to stay, Anne was a Boonchuy first, and for far longer. She only came into the Plantars' lives recently, while Mr. and Mrs. Boonchuy raised her entire life. Not to mention, after losing her for 5 months and not knowing where she is, pulling her away from them now just seems kind of cruel, even assuming that she could come back to visit them at any time. Unlike with Luce's situation in the Owl House, Anne choosing which world to live in isn't hard, and isn't a plot point that relates to her character arc. My hope and belief is that Matt will give her the option to move freely between both worlds after everything is over. As for the other girls though, making that choice will be a lot more significant.
I have no idea what to do next.
I know what you mean.
So let's move on to Sasha. Sasha hasn't yet mentioned missing her parents or her old life in general. Not only that, but she had no intention of returning once she had the box, instead wishing to permanently rule Amphibia with the Toads. At this moment in time, it's undeniable that Sasha would probably be just fine if she stayed on Amphibia. Now, I suppose Anne could be reason enough for Sasha to return. Sasha clearly genuinely loves and cares about her, and she is the biggest factor in motivating her to become a better person. And I mean, it could make sense to resolve her arc by having her start fresh with Anne as a better friend when she gets back home. However, in my opinion, there's far stronger reasons for her to stay in Amphibia. While really only Anne would keep Sasha on Earth, her bond with Grime might actually be strong enough to keep her in Amphibia. Although Anne and Marcy are Sasha's besties, Grime is family at this point.
Beatrix may have weapons and soldiers, but you know what she doesn't have? You, Lieutenant.
If Sasha really isn't close to her parents like many of us are suspecting she isn't, then it definitely wouldn't make sense for Sasha to leave him. Let's also consider that she did some extremely shitty things, and so I think the best way for her to redeem herself would be staying and helping out the people of Amphibia. You know, like how Amelia currently helps out 1-1 on the train. There's a pretty good chance that Andrias and the Knights aren't Amphibia's only threats either. As a genuinely great warrior and leader, it'd be really cool to see her become Amphibia's protector. Finally, it's Marcy time. While Marcy was discontent on Earth, struggling to form connections and at odds over her father's decision to move, Amphibia was ideal for Marcy. Her intelligence made her a hero, and she essentially got to live out the fantasy game she's so obsessed with in real life. So it was understandable that she fully intended to stay in Amphibia forever and hasn't yet mentioned missing her old life at all. With all that being said, would it really make sense for Marcy to stay here anymore? Amphibia isn't the fantastical dreamland she thought it was. After being betrayed by Andrias and being possessed by the Knight, it's less like a dreamland and more like a nightmare land. Amphibia was this idealistic fantasy for her to escape from her troubles back home, but now that that fantasy has been tainted, I have a strong feeling her view on things will drastically change. Not only that, but there's a huge chance that she ran away from a perfectly decent, loving family. Her dad didn't just make the decision on a whim and force his daughter to deal with it, he tried explaining it to her. The woman, who is presumably Marcy's mother, sounded concerned when she left as well, although she hasn't mentioned them at all up until this point, which may give the impression that she wasn't close to them. There's a pretty good chance she simply didn't want to look back. In terms of her character arc, staying absolutely doesn't make sense.
That doesn't make any sense!
Getting her and the girls trapped in another world was far from the right response to the news about her dad moving, albeit understandable considering Marcy's age. It'd be really weird to me if running away from her problems, and not considering how Sasha and Anne would feel about her dragging them along with her, worked out for her in the end. I think Marcy's storyline will be resolved by her realizing that running away from her parents has caused them even worse pain than she would have gone through from moving, and that she'll accept her dad's decision, you know, if he still has that job offer after 5 months. Like the video to support the channel, subscribe for more Amphibia content, don't forget to check out my socials in the description, and thanks so much for watching. See you next time.